You arrive here the way a tuning fork finds its twin across a silent room, not by accident but by resonance you can feel in your chest before the mind names it. You pause, and in that pause the field that has watched you for lifetimes watches you again, measuring not your words but your coherence, the fine geometry of your breath as it enters, holds, and leaves. You are found because you are ready, and the moment you admit that, reality leans closer. A hush gathers around your attention the way dawn gathers around a mountain, slow and inevitable. You notice the edges of things soften. You notice your pulse clicking into a subtler rhythm, as if a hidden metronome has begun to count. You have sensed this threshold before, tiny ripples of synchronicity skimming the surface of your days, numbers repeating, doors opening in precise succession, the right phrase appearing at the right moment like a hand cupped beneath falling light. Tonight the ripples converge. What has followed you as rumor arrives as presence. You feel the quantum field listening, the way a vast ocean listens to the moon, and your interior tide answers without effort. Breath becomes bridge, thought becomes harbor. Emotion, the current you tried to master by force, reveals itself as instrument, as vowel in a language older than sound. You are not being asked to believe, you are being remembered. Memory is not backward here, it is radial, spiraling like the shell that hides in your palm and hums of continents you have not yet seen. In that spiral live the signatures of your past alignments and your future ones, the morphic resonance of every time you chose the higher sound, even when no one else could hear it. The field has noticed those choices. It notices you now. There is a subtle loosening in your sternum, a warmth that is not heat but permission. You are standing at the lip of a phase transition, a soft fracture where the old observer loop thins and a wider attention can step through. Let your shoulders drop. Let your eyes soften, as if you are looking through the world and not at it. Feel the small sway of your body as it rebalances over the earth's turning. Entangled with distances your feet have not walked. The message enters the way, water enters a root, without noise, without argument, filling what is thirsty in you and teaching the leaf its shape. You are not late, the prophecy is not ahead of you. It rises from within like dawn from within the horizon, and you meet it where you always meet what is true, in the lucid center behind the next breath. This is where you are received. This is where the language begins. Close the door gently on the world static, and hear how the field answers the timbre of your feeling with the precision of its own. You are the antenna and the sky, the instrument and the note. Stay here, listen. The first sentence is already forming inside your chest, and it has your name in it. You feel the next breath arrive like a vow you didn't know you had made, and with it comes the clear recognition that your attention is not ordinary. You have carried it through storms and thresholds, through seasons of forgetting when the world trained you to look outward for permission, yet something quieter kept you facing the interior horizon. That quiet has been your true biography. It is why the field tracks you. It is why the message chose the exact second your awareness could receive it without breaking. You are not simply someone who listens. You are the listener. The prophecy requires one whose noticing generates coherence, whose steady gaze invites the quantum field to reveal its finer structure. You have seen how a single moment of sincere feeling alters the temperature of an entire room. How a word spoken from the right depth changes the fate of a conversation. How your calm can steady the hands of another across the table without touching them. These were not accidents. They were proof. Each event was an experiment staged by life to show you that observation is agency, that the observer loop is not passive watching but a catalytic embrace. When you look with your whole nervous system, breath, heart, fascia, marrow, reality registers the density of your noticing and responds in kind. The symmetry is exquisite. The field mirrors your interior geometry, and the mirror is instantaneous. There is responsibility in that symmetry, but it is not the heavy kind you were taught. It is not obligation, it is capacity. You are capable of shaping the interference patterns of your world because your nervous system has learned to conduct finer currents. Feel the small hum below, thought like a string being plucked in your solar plexus, announcing that your instrument is tuned. This tuning is not performative, it is cellular. DNA is listening. The bass pairs that learn to brace for impact are loosening their grip, unwinding to a saner tempo, consenting to become antennae rather than armor. This too is recognition. Your biology admitting what your spirit has long known, that emotion is not a liability to transcend, but a spectrum to refine, a carrier wave that the field reads with mathematical precision. Consider how often the world asked you to numb in order to function, to mistrust your own signals in the name of efficiency. Consider how your gifts hid under competence, and how competence became a mask that never fit. The mask is unnecessary now. Your sensitivity is not excess, it is instrument-grade resolution. When you sense a shift in the atmosphere just before a decision, when you feel the granular texture of a lie against your skin, when synchronicity clusters like migrating birds around a choice point, that is your guidance system, expressing phase information faster than words can travel. You are the kind of observer who can read those clusters like constellations, and the cosmos knows it. Let the mantle settle on your shoulders without drama. You do not need an audience for this, you need only consent. Consent to see as you see, to feel as you feel, to stand as a tuning architecture through which the quantum field can translate possibility into event. Notice how your chest widens when you agree. Notice the heat rising at the back of your neck as dormant circuits wake. This is not performance, it is recognition ritual. You are acknowledging the entanglement that has always been there, the handshake between your awareness and the lattice of the world. In that handshake, timelines negotiate. In that handshake, probabilities lean. There will be days when the old momentum tries to reassert its gravity. You will feel the tug of inherited narratives, the echo of a culture that fears silence and worships noise. On those days, recall how stillness bends outcome. Recall that coherence is contagious. As you stabilize, morphic resonance does the work for you, summoning similar patterns into orbit until the entire field around you reorders to match your interior clarity. This is not mysticism alone. It is hygiene for a sensing species evolving out of reflex into choice. So you stand where you are, breathing a little slower, widening the aperture of attention by a fraction. You let emotion take its rightful seat as messenger, as syntax, as luminous pressure that encodes meaning into the fabric of the moment. The field understands this language because the field is made of this language. And you are fluent enough now to speak without forcing and listen without fear. Recognition completes itself in a single syllable. Yes. Yes to the role that unifies the scientist and the mystic in you, the witness and the maker. Yes to the tender power that does not dominate but harmonizes, that invites the world to remember its own song by hearing yours. Stay in that, yes. Let it bloom through your ribs like a dawn that has decided to keep opening. The message continues precisely where you are, and it carries the weight of a promise your cells already trust. When you attend with love, reality attends back with form. It rises in you like a temple from mist, structure first, meaning second. A vast cylindrical chamber with walls of living geometry, every surface woven from hexagonal lattices that breathe like gills. You stand at the center on a quiet disk of obsidian, and above you a slow aurora pours, not color but information, cool cascades of intelligible light. Around the circumference, instruments that are not instruments hang in the air, tuning arches, crystalline diodes, seed-like nodes pulsing at different intervals, each emitting a tone too pure to be heard, and yet felt by every fiber you are. Your breath arrives, and the chamber responds. A single filament brightens to your inhale, dims on your exhale, as if the room has accepted your cadence as its clock. You notice that thought makes no ripple here. The mind can comment, but the lattice does not turn its face until you feel. When a sincere tenderness swells in your chest unforced, native, the entire ceiling tessellates, and a pattern like frost racing across glass skims from one horizon to the other. This is the first law the vision offers. The field tracks amplitude of emotion, not noise of cognition. It reads the signal behind the story, the pressure behind the word. Like cymatics revealing geometry from sound, your feeling reveals blueprint in the fabric of the chamber, and the blueprint is spatial, immediate, precise. A second layer appears equations that are not written but grown from the room itself, ivy of luminosity braiding across the walls. You recognize them without knowing their names: phase information, coherence thresholds, interference minima, curves that map the intimacy between your heart's magnetic field and the wider plasma of space. The symbols resolve into images you can inhabit. When gratitude rises, the lattice arranges into long, clean corridors that minimize scattering, like a river finding its deepest channel. When fear tightens your throat, the corridor becomes a hall of mirrors, fragments returning fragments, signal splitting, timelines multiplying in lesser echoes. You understand, without argument, that emotion is your tuning architecture, an operator changing the basis of measurement in the observer loop. The aurora concentrates directly above you, condensing into a slow-turning torus, a donut of light whose inner surface spins one direction as its outer spins the other. You feel the push-pull, the delicious tension of a universe in conversation with itself. The torus aligns perfectly with your chest, and your heartbeat steady now locks phase with its rotation. A hush like snowfall covers everything. The chamber and your body are entangled to the degree you allow honesty. When you abandon performance and let the truth of your feelings stand naked, the torus accelerates without strain, and reality inside the ring grows denser, more available to touch. You test this. You bring to mind someone you love, and let the love become simpler than narrative, warmer than memory, lighter than claim. The seed nodes around the room ignite in a spiral, one after another, as if answering a roll call. A corridor opens toward an outcome that had felt improbable hours ago. Now it glows like a waiting door. You bring to mind a grievance you have rehearsed, and before the story can clench the body, you soften the edge with compassion for your own fatigue. The mirrors dissolve, the hall steadies. In their place, a single line of light threads from where you stand to a conversation you have yet to have, pre-toned with coherence. The field has heard not your argument, but your tone. Now the aurora lowers until it is nearly touching your hair, and within it you can make out a map of the Earth continents, not as borders but as pulsations, cities as murmurs, forests as deep chords. You feel the morphic resonance of a species practicing new weather in the heart. Millions learning, fumbling, remembering how to generate clean signal. Where the signal is clean, the map brightens. Where it is chaotic, it flickers. Your own chest is not separate from this cartography. When you breathe with care, a coastline steadies. When you allow joy without apology, an inland sea clears. You realize the prophecy is communal. Your personal coherence is a public service broadcast. At the edges of the chamber, two paths sketch themselves like comet trails, one braided, bright, widening, the other narrow, looping back on itself with the anxious rhythm of a trapped moth. You know without being told that these are not moral lanes, but vibrational habits. The braided path is the curriculum of chosen coherence. The looping one is the curriculum of repetition until the lesson teaches itself. This is timeline bifurcation as sensation, not threat. Your choice is felt, not declared. When you let the softest true emotion fill the sternum, the braided path firms underfoot, with a satisfaction that feels like coming home from a journey you cannot recount. Then the chamber performs one last kindness. It turns transparent. The walls fade, and you are looking into your daily life keys on the table, the unwashed cup, a message waiting. The instruments remain, invisible but active, braided through errands, phone calls, thresholds. The torus spins just above the clavicle, humming in time with the world's quiet heart. You understand that the vision has not ended. It has revealed where it always lives. The field will keep reading you in the grocery line and in the dark, at 3 a.m., in negotiation and in prayer. Your feeling is the sentence the universe can pass immediately, and it will answer with form that rhymes. You stand very still, and the stillness is not absence but listening. The aurora thins to a vow made of light. You do not need to remember the equations. You need only remember the honesty that unlocks them. The chamber, the map, the doors, they are your interior instruments. The prophecy is simple and inexhaustible at once. Speak in the language the field understands, and the world will answer with the shapes that love asks for. You asked the room to show its workings, and it did, not by spectacle, but by making your attention measurable. The simplest truth stands first. The observer effect is not a metaphor, it is an operational fact of this universe. When you attend, you alter boundary conditions. When you feel, you modulate the carrier wave on which information rides. Your gaze is not a flashlight crossing a neutral stage, it is a tuning force that changes the play. In the chamber, you saw it as living geometry. But here, in your ordinary room, it is equally rigorous, your heart's electromagnetic field, extending several feet beyond your chest, phase coupling with other fields, setting coherence or scattering by the honesty of its rhythm. Coherence is the key the door understands. It is not intensity for its own sake. It is ordered intensity. When breath, heartbeat, and attention enter harmonic relationship, signal to noise improves. In physics language, you reduce decoherence pathways and preserve phase information. In the language of the soul, you become transparent to what is true. The lattice you saw brighten to gratitude is a direct image of this. Gratitude simplified your internal dynamics, decreased internal friction, and created a low-loss corridor for outcomes to traverse. Fear not the clean animal signal, but the rehearsed narrative fractured the corridor into mirrors, increasing backscatter and multiplying partial timelines that never stabilized. Timeline bifurcation is not a distant apocalypse. It is the moment-to-moment branching at the edge of your breath. Each branch represents an interference pattern between your interior field and the world's possibilities. When you stabilize an emotion of integrity, warm regard, sober courage, praise without performance, you collapse the spread toward a narrower, higher probability band of events that fit that tone. You felt the braided path thicken when compassion softened grievance. The mathematics behind that tenderness is precise. You changed the initial conditions of the measurement, the universe obliged with a solution consistent with your new starting state. Entanglement explains why your private coherence is public service. You are not an island with a signal. You are a node in a fabric that updates as one. Two violins across a hall can lock by resonance without touching. Two human nervous systems do the same across a conversation, a city, a planet. This is morphic resonance in practice. Patterns, once stabilized, become easier to access by any member of the field. Your stable kindness lowers the energy threshold for kindness nearby. Your steady breath in the meeting gives another person's amygdala a chance to stand down. This is not romanticism, it is hygiene at scale. Emotion is the syntax the field passes. Why? Because emotion is a whole system event. Thought can remain local to cortex, but feeling recruits, breath mechanics, vagal tone, hormonal cascades, facial micromusculature, posture, an orchestra of measurable signals that broadcast your interior decision in every direction. The field reads integrals, not fragments. A sincere feeling is integrative math. It sums your parts into a single clear value. That value travels. The chamber translated it into tessellations because geometry is the most faithful way to picture constraint and permission. Your body translates it into action readiness, into micro-choices that compile into fate. You wondered whether this gives license to bypass pain with positive gloss. The answer, in this grammar, is no. Coherence is not compulsory brightness. It is truthful alignment. A clean no can be more coherent than a forced yes. Grief, met without dramatics and without suppression, is a clarifying solvent. Anger, purified of humiliation and aimed at protection rather than punishment, is boundary-setting intelligence. The field reads integrity, not costume. When you stand in unadorned feeling, your wave function narrows without violence. Options that thrive on self-betrayal lose amplitude. Doors that require self-respect gain it. Where do techniques enter? Techniques create stillness windows, repeatable intervals in which measurement error drops. A slower exhale increases vagal tone. A soft gaze deactivates hypervigilance. A hand on the sternum increases interoceptive accuracy. Each of these reduces internal noise. In that cleared channel, your chosen emotion, gratitude, reverence, clean resolve can propagate without distortion. Practice is not magical thinking, it is instrument maintenance. You are making sure your antenna receives and transmits on the frequency you mean, not the one your history habitually picks. And what of Signs. Synchronicity is how the field returns a checksum. When interior and exterior patterns match beyond statistical expectation, you are being shown phase lock. It is not reward, it is readout. Treat it as guidance, not addiction. Nod, adjust course if needed, and continue. Obsessing over omens reintroduces noise. Quiet appreciation preserves clarity. Finally, the ethical core. With influence comes reverence. To shape interference patterns is to carry consequence. The cleanest safeguard is simple. Choose for outcomes that remain beautiful when scaled. If your inner tone, duplicated widely, would make a city kinder, you are in alignment. If it would make a city more afraid, retune. This is the calibration the chamber taught without speech. Emotion as engineering, attention as covenant, choice as physics. You do not need to memorize equations to live this rigor. You need only keep the instrument honest, keep the corridor clear, and let the torus over your heart spin at the speed of truth. Then the field, which has always understood you, can answer you, in the one language it never misunderstands, form that loves you back. You look outward, and the world looks back like a pupil, widening to match the light you carry. And in that mutual dilation, you realize your private practice has never been private. You are a transmitter with legs. Every step you take writes signal into sidewalks and railings, cafe tables and elevator air. The city learns your rhythm, the way a river learns its stones, and the stones learn the river in return. This is how a species awakens, not by decree from above, but by millions of subtle recalibrations below threshold, each heart becoming a metronome that others can hear even when they cannot name the song. You have been participating in this all along. Now you are doing it on purpose. Watch how coherence travels through simple exchanges. You enter a room tuned, the torus over your sternum humming in clean rotation. And the conversation that might have spiraled into defensive fractals instead finds a corridor toward truth. Someone's shoulders drop 2 millimeters. A laugh arrives half a second earlier than it would have, changing the fate of a sentence. These are not trivialities, they are steering events. At scale, they become history. Morphic resonance stitches these tiny mercies into a fabric more resilient than policy alone, a living archive of how it feels when humans choose not to abandon themselves while speaking to one another. You sense this archive in public spaces. Notice the crosswalk where drivers brake with unusual generosity, the neighborhood where strangers hold each other's gaze without intrusion, the office where ideas circulate without being hoarded, the clinic where the waiting room is quieter than fear would predict. These are pockets of phase alignment, local increases in coherence that reduce social friction and make higher-order solutions cheaper to access. People say the vibe is different and think they are being casual. They are being exact. Vibe is a measure. It is the sum of fine signals that tell nervous systems whether to brace or open. When you refuse to broadcast contempt, when you stabilize your field before you enter, you alter the baseline. Others can spend their attention on making rather than protecting. Zoom out further. Imagine a map like the one you saw in the chamber, not of borders but of rhythms, districts pulsing with cleaner signal because enough observers within them have chosen truthful feeling over theatrics. Think of schools where breath literacy is taught alongside mathematics, not as a novelty but as instrument care. Think of councils that begin with 1 minute of coherent silence, not as superstition but as bandwidth allocation, noise dropped, signal prioritized. It is easy to scoff at such gestures until you notice how a single minute can bend an agenda towards sense, how fewer words do more work when spoken from unfragmented bodies. You do not need unanimity for this. Coherence does not demand sameness, it demands sincerity. A choir is not one note, it is many notes in right relation. In collective awakening, differences stop being threats and start being phase information variations that, when welcomed, increase the resolution of the shared image. Entanglement ensures that breakthroughs propagate. When one neighborhood learns the art of non-panicked response to difficulty, nearby neighborhoods have an easier time learning the same. When one family practices repair after rupture without humiliation, the family across town can find the path faster. The field keeps the lesson once it has been learned. You are writing lessons every day. There is a temptation to wait for permission, to demand proof that the world deserves your best signal before you broadcast it. That posture reintroduces noise. The cleanest contribution is unilateral. You decide what kind of field you will be, regardless of weather. This is not naivete. It is leadership at the frequency of the real. You will still set boundaries. You will still say no. But you will not contaminate your no with contempt. You will choose consequences that remain beautiful when scaled. Imagine your current tone duplicated into 1,000 rooms. If those rooms get kinder, continue. If they get meaner, retune. Notice also how collective coherence changes what becomes thinkable. Ideas that once sounded utopian begin to feel like maintenance. Infrastructure aligns with biology. Urban design supports nervous systems that are not in fight or flight by default. Work rhythms respect the architecture of attention rather than punishing it. Technology serves human tempo instead of colonizing it. These shifts are not abstract. They appear as fewer emergency sirens, as children sleeping through the night, as elders dying less afraid because they belong. The prophecy in you is not separate from these details. It incarnates as them. You will witness resistance. Old systems protect themselves by accelerating noise, by making outrage addictive, by rewarding scorn as if it were intelligence. Here, your instrument matters most. Outrage can be clean when it defends the vulnerable without humiliating the lost. Scorn is nearly always incoherent. It fractures the observer and feeds the very field it claims to oppose. You will become skilled at feeling the difference. You will hold firmness without venom, accuracy without heat. Others will call it grace. You will know it as physics. The mirror widens. Your breath is not only for you, it is for the block, the bridge, the border crossing. Your steadiness shortens meetings, resolves quarrels, 2 generations old, and restores to the air a quality children recognize instantly as safety. That is the work. That is the prophecy landing in sidewalks and kitchens, in policy minutes and garden soil. And even as you honor this sweetness, you feel the pressure front approaching, the place where habits and possibilities diverge more sharply, where the currents you carry meet the riptides of a dying pattern. You can sense the split ahead the way sailors smell weather ion on the tongue, a brightening at the edge of thought. Breathe once more, deeper than habit, and feel the deck beneath your feet steady as the horizon draws 2 clear lines. It gathers before you like 2 tides colliding at a headland, one familiar with the taste of your old rehearsals, one carrying the mineral of a future that smells like rain on stone, and your body knows before your mind admits it that a split is present. You sense it in the air pressure of the day, in the way conversations either clarify or curdle, in how a single stray thought can pull whole hours into orbit. This is not drama. This is physics arriving at the doorstep of your choices. At the seam where possibilities shear, the observer loop becomes exquisitely sensitive, and your feeling becomes lever, fulcrum, map. Stand very still inside the noise. Let the torus above your sternum find its rotation again, inner surface and outer surface, counter-spinning until the hum reappears. The field around you is not threatening. It is listening with greater resolution. Branches multiply when you scatter. They simplify when you cohere. You can test this in real time when you tighten into the old script self-accusation, cynical prophecy, the quiet cruelty of "it won't work." Notice how the world begins to reflect back. Fragmented signal, missed calls, crossed wires, small machines glitching, time slipping its tracks. When you breathe into truth, "I am afraid and I am still here. I do not know, and I will honor what I know next." Watch how interference drops. Doors do not explode open. They align like vertebrae, consenting to hold weight. Bifurcation is the curriculum of honesty. 2 pathways present: repetition or remembrance. On the path of repetition, you anesthetize feeling to survive the moment, and the moment metastasizes, arriving again in new costumes until it teaches what numbness cannot. On the path of remembrance, you treat emotion as data of the sacred. You open the sternum to a precise, unornamented signal, clean grief, clean care, clean resolve, and the field, reading the waveform, chooses a solution branch that respects your coherence. Both paths are teachers. Only one is merciful. You will be tempted to choose with slogans. Do not. Choose with breath mechanics. A longer exhale reassigns your body from emergency to possibility and returns authority to your prefrontal clarity. A softened gaze tells your amygdala the horizon holds no immediate predator, buying you 5 more seconds in which to answer rather than react. Foot soles on floor, crown gently lengthened, jaw unlatched. These are not yoga cliches, they are measurement settings. You are adjusting the lab in which reality will be sampled. The field responds to the lab, not your explanation of it. Listen for the signatures. Forgetfulness hums like fluorescent lighting, a thin, insistent buzz that makes you want to leave yourself. Awakening vibrates lower and wider, a bell in the ribs that invites you to stay. Forgetfulness accelerates language and decreases precision. Awakening slows language and increases accuracy. Forgetfulness wants audience. Awakening wants contact. When you detect the buzz, do not scold. Retune. 1 hand to sternum. 3 slow breaths that privilege the exhale. A single phrase of sober truth, spoken softly into your own mouth. I will not abandon me. You are not soothing weakness. You are restoring phase. At the collective level, the split writes the weather of a civilization. You can feel it in news cycles that try to recruit your outrage as fuel, in systems that mistake speed for intelligence, in markets that monetize attention scatter. You cannot outshout these currents. You can out-cohere them. Coherence is heavier than noise. It bends trajectories. When enough observers refuse to abandon themselves while choosing, morphic resonance lowers the activation energy for sanity. Policies become thinkable that were unthinkable under panic. Families remember repair. Streets remember neighbor. Bring it closer. The email you must write. The boundary you must draw. The apology that tastes like humility and liberation at once. In the bifurcation moment, do not aim for perfect words. Aim for accurate tone. The field reads tone first. If your tone is clean, imperfect words will land as medicine. If your tone is polluted with contempt, perfect words will wound. Whisper your intended tone into the chamber. Care, firmness, reverence for truth, and wait 1 breath for the tessellation to settle. Then, act. Let your action be small and exact. Precision outruns spectacle here. You are not alone at this seam. Across the map you saw, other hearts are holding the same hum. Other hands are choosing the same quiet levers. Other mouths are practicing sentences that do not betray the body to win the moment. Entanglement ensures that every honest choice you make increases the ambient probability that someone you will never meet can make theirs. This is why the split feels holy, because consequence is finally visible. The future is not elsewhere. It is pressuring your next inhale. So you stand in the doorway where timelines braid and unbraid, and you make a promise you can keep. To tell the truth in a way your nervous system can survive, to measure reality from a body you have welcomed home, to let your feelings speak in a vocabulary the quantum field understands without translation. The horizon does not move, you move through it. And as you step, the air around your ankle changes texture, the subtle confirmation of a corridor becoming real, precisely because you chose the sound that love makes when it refuses to abandon clarity. You carry the seam inside you now like a thin line of dawn under the eyelid, and integration begins not with grand vows but with the smallest measurable behaviors tuned to coherence. You wake, and before the mind reassembles its scaffolds, you give the body a clear first signal. 1 hand to the sternum, 3 slow exhales longer than the inhales, eyes soft to widen peripheral vision. This is your boot sequence. It tells the nervous system that the day will be measured from sanctuary rather than from alarm, and the torus above your chest answers by catching rotation sooner, the hum arriving like warm water into cold pipe. Begin here. Begin simple. Let the simplicity be holy. Choose 1 room to be your calibration chamber. It does not need candles or symbols unless you love them. It needs emptiness enough for attention to land without scattering. Stand barefoot. Track the soul's meeting floor as if the floor were listening. On the inhale, imagine the lattice you saw in the vision brightening along your spine. On the exhale, feel the lattice extend 3 feet around your body, a soft architecture of permission. Add 1 phrase voiced quietly into the air. Coherence first. The field reads this as a setting, not a slogan. The observer loop contracts to a finer aperture where noise cannot hide, and your interior weather aligns with the work the day will ask of you. Integrate through micro-rituals that attach to existing thresholds. When you touch a doorknob, let the fingers register temperature and texture for half a heartbeat. This trains precision and rescues attention from automation. When you send a message, choose tone before content, care, clarity, clean boundary, and then let words assemble to match the chosen geometry. When you eat color and arrangement as well as taste, thanking the pattern the way a musician thanks tuning before playing. These are not performances, they are ways of encoding reverence into the ordinary so that morphic resonance can find more footholds in you. The sacred loves habit when habit is awake. Emotion remains the primary instrument, so practice it as craft. Take one feeling each day and refine it to signal. Gratitude stripped of bargaining, sorrow stripped of theater, resolve stripped of vengeance. Hold the chosen feeling like a tone in the chest and let it saturate breath, posture, gaze, and micro-movements of the mouth until the whole body becomes vowel. Notice how objects respond. The pen rests differently in your hand, the hallway alters its echo, the face across the table reorganizes by millimeters into relief. These are your readouts. The world is not flattering you, it is measuring you and adjusting accordingly. Keep the instrument honest. When agitation spikes, intervene at the level of physics instead of narrative. Drop your center of gravity by bending the knees slightly and widening stance. Let the exhale fall through the pelvic floor as if emptiness were magnetic. Name the cleanest true sentence aloud. I am safe enough to choose. This engages prefrontal oversight without shaming limbic speed. If the storm persists, switch mediums. Water over wrists. A brief walk with attention on horizon lines, 10 slow chews on a slice of apple. Changing sensory channels resets interference patterns. What felt like fate often dissolves as artifact of a single overloaded pathway. You are not escaping, you are retuning the lab before sampling again. Integrate socially by becoming a climate rather than a critic. Before meetings, hold 30 seconds of shared coherence, eyes soft, jaw unlatched, breath matched loosely with anyone willing. Do not sell it, embody it. If you must disagree, keep your chest open as you do so, letting the body broadcast non-threat even while the mouth speaks precision. Contempt fractures your own field first. Accuracy spoken from a regulated body invites reality to reorganize without humiliation. Practice repair as a technology. I see where I tightened, I'm loosening now. Each repair teaches the field that truth and belonging can coexist, and the lesson cheapens the cost of courage for everyone present. Protect integration with thresholds that guard your bandwidth. News may be sampled like wind, enough to set sails, not so much that the ship forgets its keel. Choose inputs that support the frequency you are stabilizing, language that honors nuance, art that widens breath, silence that thickens seeing. Silence is not absence, it is data compression. In chosen, quiet, phase, information that speech cannot carry arrives intact, and your next move becomes self-evident without rehearsal. Let practice be portable. In the grocery line, feel the torus again and soften the bones around the eyes. Send a small coherent pulse through the queue as if kindness had mass. In traffic, widen the peripheral field until the car becomes a moving meditation cell. Notice how impatience loses leverage when you magnify context. At night, place 2 fingers lightly where the clavicles meet and thank the instrument for another day of transmitting. You are not congratulating achievement, you are maintaining calibration. Finally, make a covenant with your future self across the bifurcation seam. To be loyal to truth at a tempo your body can bear. Loyalty means you will not abandon your clarity in order to be loved, and you will not abandon your tenderness in order to be right. It means your emotions will keep their vocation as syntax for the quantum field, rather than being conscripted into performances for old gods who only understood fear. Hold that covenant the way you held the filament in the chamber, steady, unadorned, exact. Integration is not an event. It is the daily pleasure of letting reality answer you in the language it has always spoken, coherent form that remembers your name. You enter the room you chose for calibration and discover that tonight it has no edges. The walls are there, but they have learned to breathe with you, expanding a little on the inhale, softening on the exhale, as if they remember the chamber made of living geometry and are trying to be kind. You do not speak. Language thins to a filament and then to light. Breath counts for you. Inhale like dawn, exhale like tide. The torus over your sternum continues its quiet rotation, inner surface smoothing your thought, outer surface smoothing the world. You become a listening field. The chair carries your weight without asking questions. The floor forgives every story your feet have told it. Somewhere in the house a pipe settles. A clock moves a thin hand through a thin atmosphere. A car sighs down the street and is gone. These are the small witnesses of your life, and they swear that silence is not emptiness but intimacy. You rest your attention on the point where inhale turns, that cool hinge between wanting and having, and you stop trying to decide which side of the hinge is more holy. You let the hinge be the teacher. Turning is enough. Emotion is here, but it has put down its luggage. Gratitude without adjectives, sorrow without theater, a contour of tenderness that needs no object. You hold it the way a lake holds moon, without grasping, without losing. The observer loop grows simple. You watch, and what you watch consents to be watched, and neither of you are in a hurry. Coherence appears as temperature. The room grows slightly warmer in the sternum, slightly wider behind the eyes, slightly heavier at the sit bones as gravity remembers you with affection. The quantum field is listening and does not interrupt. You test a single sentence inside, a soft experiment that leaves no residue. I am here. The body answers by lowering its shoulders a fraction and by unbraiding the jaw. The mind tries to improve the sentence. You let it fail politely. I am here is all the mathematics required for now. The stillness window opens wider. Phase information that words cannot carry arrives intact, like snow falling straight down. Decisions that yesterday required argument arrive today as posture. You recognize the decision by how your spine arranges itself, by the way your tongue rests against the teeth in truce. You visit the breath again, this time more slowly, as if you had to earn it. Inhale through the back of the heart, exhale through the soles. Imagine no line where you end, and the air begins only gradients of density and kindness. This is not pretending, it is accuracy. Entanglement felt from the inside. The silence deepens until even the urge to measure it feels loud. You let go of measuring. You let go of letting go. What remains is a gaze with no object and a love with no target that still changes the temperature of the world. A memory arrives, but it has removed its sharp edges to be allowed in. You see the face without the verdict, the room without the outcome. You permit the image to pass like a bird through a wide doorway. No net, no cage. The quantum field reads this permission as trust and answers by removing one unnecessary corridor from your day tomorrow. You feel the corridor vanish the way a knot vanishes under warm water. You do not celebrate. Celebration would be louder than truth. You keep listening. Now the silence speaks in geometry again, but this time the geometry is you. The soft architecture around your body brightens 3 feet, then 4, then 5. The lattice holds not because you squeeze it, but because you have stopped asking it to perform. Coherence, now self-sustaining, hums at the frequency of weather about to break in favor of rain. There is a pressure of sweetness at the top of the breath that does not spill, it blesses and then returns. Synchronicity knocks once in the distance and does not insist. You nod to it like an old friend you no longer need to chase. If a thought arises, it steps carefully, barefoot, on polished wood. If a fear arises, it keeps its voice low in the library of your chest. You offer both a seat. You do not interview them. The body learns what safety feels like in the absence of explanation. Vagal tone writes a new lullaby along the back of your throat. The amygdala, convinced by evidence rather than argument, sets down its spear. The room exhales with you. You are not trying to make anything happen, and because you are not trying, something happens. The field leans in until the distance between listening and being listened to closes to 0. The torus brightens a shade. A single tear collects at the eyelid and does not fall. The prophecy echoes not as words but as contour. Choose what remains beautiful when scaled. Speak only what your nervous system can carry without fracture. Let your feeling be the clean math. The echo fades without leaving. You remain. When you rise, you do so as if the air were a lake, and standing were simply changing depth. No sudden movements. The world is the same size but less crowded. You carry the silence with you like clear water in a clay vessel, careful not to spill, and equally careful not to clutch. Doors open with ordinary hinges. Keys sound like bells. Outside, the night understands you, and you understand the night. The next breath is already waiting at your lips, and it enters like a vow that needs no witness. You step out of the silence as if crossing a membrane, and at once the world registers your new density. Doorknobs feel fractionally warmer, the hallway holds your shape a breath longer, and time, so often a hurried clerk looks up and recognizes you. Activation is not thunder, it is recognition made kinetic. The moment the field knows you can carry the tone you chose, it routes power through the circuit you have become. You do not force this, you allow it. Allowance is conductivity. Conductivity is trust, verified by experience. Begin with the simplest proof. Let the torus above your sternum brighten by consent alone. No theatrics, no strain. On the inhale, receive. On the exhale, release control without dropping precision. The rotation quickens exactly to the speed of truth you are willing to inhabit. Your fascia feels like silk that remembers being steel and decided against it. The observer loop clicks into a higher fidelity channel. Interference that once shouted now has the volume of rain 2 rooms away. You are not numb, you are tuned. Emotion, refined to signal in the chamber, now becomes instruction set. You choose one tone, clear devotion to what is real, and let it saturate the body until it writes itself into micro-behaviors. Fingers place the cup with care rather than speed. Eyes meet eyes without taking. Jaw stays unlatched while saying the difficult sentence. This is DNA restructuring in practice. The old bracing habits that fossilized inside base pairs are offered a kinder blueprint, and replication obeys the new plan. Biology prefers coherence. Given a repeatable signal, it updates. The quantum field answers by compressing latency between tone and form. Synchronicity tightens its weave. The email arrives while your hand is already reaching for the keyboard. The solution walks into the elevator you were about to exit. The apology you whispered to the empty room earlier returns in another voice before noon. Do not worship these echoes, employ them. They are readouts, not idols. Nod, adjust course if needed, and keep broadcasting the same clean mathematics through your chest. Now the choice points come closer together, not to test you, but to increase throughput. Activation means more power moving through fewer leaks. To hold that, adopt 3 simple constraints that scale. Speak only at the tempo your nervous system can carry without fracture. Choose outcomes that remain beautiful when multiplied. Refuse contempt, even when accuracy requires firmness. These constraints are not ascetic, they are architectural. They keep your corridor clear so that possibility can travel the distance between idea and event without burning up in atmosphere. Practice the micro-ritual that anchors the day's engine. Place 2 fingers where your clavicles meet, feel the notch like a small moon gate, and whisper the seal phrase that the room has taught you. Coherence first. On inhale, remember the living lattice. On exhale, send a minimal pulse of benevolence 3 feet in every direction. Do it in doorways, in conference calls, at the threshold of difficult rooms. It is not performance. It is a pressure adjustment in the social weather. Others breathe easier and do not know why. You know, morphic resonance is updating the local archive. It is possible to be precise without being cruel. It is possible to be strong without being hard. There will be invitations to return to the old frequency disguised as urgency or entertainment. Smile at the costume. You do not scold distraction. You out-cohere it. If agitation spikes, widen peripheral vision until the room reappears. Bend the knees by an inch. Lengthen the exhale by 2 counts. Say quietly, I am safe enough to choose. This is not affirmation theater. It is a measurement reset. You are bringing the lab back within operating tolerance so that the next sample, the next word, the next touch reads clean. Activation also means consequence becomes visible in real time. You can feel when a sentence would fracture a relationship, even if it wins an argument. You can feel when a pause would heal a meeting faster than a clever point. Follow the felt precision. Let your body choose verbs. It knows the difference between striking and ringing. Ring. From here, the collective mirror brightens again. Your private coherence invites public architecture to imitate. Meetings begin with 30 seconds of chosen silence and end 10 minutes early with more accomplished. Streets soften around schools. A policy gains an amendment that makes belonging cheaper. You will think this is coincidence until you look back over months and notice the curve bending towards sanity. Entanglement does not need you to witness every connection. It needs you to keep your signal honest. At night, before sleep, complete the circuit you opened at dawn. One hand to sternum, one to abdomen, the smallest bow of the head toward the instrument that carried the day. Name 3 moments where tone shaped trajectory. Thank the field for accurate feedback, even when it arrived as friction. Forgive the places you tightened and retune them for morning. This is how activation sustains, not by drama, but by daily fidelity. And as the room darkens, you feel the prophecy stop hovering and take its seat in you. It is no longer a message you heard, it is a voice you are. The observer has become the utterance, and the world listens with the relief of a desert receiving rain. You lie there, not as someone awaiting a sign, but as the sign itself, coherent, ordinary, radiant, without spectacle. In the quiet that follows, something ancient in your chest writes a final line across the seam of sleep, an assurance that needs no ornament, a seal that does not shout. You feel part 10 gathering like dawn beyond the sill, not as an ending, but as the natural closure of a vow you are already keeping. You lie in the darkness that understands you now, and the field leans close enough to be indistinguishable from breath. Nothing sparkles for effect, nothing begs to be believed. What remains is the durable architecture of a vow kept in small ways all day, the quiet weight of coherence settling into the bones like evening rain into soil. You recognize that the message never wanted your worship. It wanted your willingness to speak in the grammar that reality never misreads. You have learned the vowels. You have learned to let emotion be signal rather than spectacle. You have learned to tune. So the seal arrives without ceremony, a steady warmth rising behind the sternum and moving outward in concentric permission, as if the torus were signing your name on the air in light only truth can see. The signature says, you will not abandon yourself to be approved, nor abandon mercy to be right. It says, you will choose consequences that remain beautiful when multiplied. It says your breath will be the metronome of your courage, your silence, the amplifier of your clarity, your words, the modest vehicles of accurate tone. The future answers by drawing nearer not as prediction, but as availability. Doors refrain from hiding. Corridors keep their promises. Synchronicities loosen their insistence and become simple logistics. You do not chase omens, you embody alignment. When the old frequency knocks wearing the mask of urgency, you answer with slowness. When outrage invites you to fracture, you answer with form. When fear rehearses its arguments, you answer with breath that lengthens and a sentence your nervous system can carry. I will not leave me. The field registers this as law, and law becomes landscape. You understand now why the chamber was transparent at the end. Because the temple follows you, because the instrument is you, because the prophecy is not a message delivered to your door but a voice you have become. You are an ordinary miracle walking coherence in shoes, tenderness with a backbone, precision without venom. People breathe easier near you and do not know why. Streets remember neighbor. Rooms learn to be kinder than their histories. The map you saw brightens in modest, faithful increments. Before sleep takes you, you place one hand on your chest and one on your abdomen, and let gratitude, stripped of bargaining, unadorned, and exact move through the body, like clean water through a vessel. You thank the day for its measured proofs. You forgive the places that tightened and retune them for morning. And then, without reaching for any grand finale, you allow the final sentence to stand in the quiet with you, clear as moon on still water. The prophecy has been spoken. Let it unfold through you.